Welcome to Heaven's Dome. We're always happy to have you. We try to get topics that will interest you. This week, we're going to be looking at church planting. Two of our newest churches are Restoration and Rockaway. We have the founders of those churches with us, and we're just going to look at how they started. We have with us Delbert Pearman and Douglas Trott. Gentlemen, thank you so much for thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Now, Delbert, David.
That's okay.
David.
I go by
David,
both
David
names.
and Delbert, the twins, so the answer to both.
Yeah.
David, now, was that idea born with you?
Well, I think it was a group of us that got the vision. I certainly caught the vision, along with Elder Doug and a few others. But yeah, I was one of the ones that caught the early vision, and we moved on it. And we thank God that it's brought the fruit that it has today.
Now, why was there a need? How did that start? What was happening for for God to implant that idea in your head?
Well, I think where it started, looking back in retrospect, it started back in Toronto, actually, where myself and Sonia was a part of a small group.
Sonia's his wife.
Yes. We were part of a small group of about 50 that were with a group in Victoria Park. And then we moved on to Agincourt. And I just found myself playing a role into the development of the Agincourt Church. And that church grew, which I was a part of the assistant building manager to build the church, which was the Apple Creek Church. That church grew from about 50 individuals, and now the membership is over 1,500. And so that was, looking back in retrospect, that was my first experience. The second experience, very quickly, was when I went back to Toronto, and I attended the West Toronto Church. When we were there, the membership was about 800. But when I went back to school, the membership was dropped to about 400 or 500. And they had 5 pastors within 4 years. And the elders started asking me, I wasn't a member, but they invited me always to the elders' meetings and just asking advice because they were in real trouble. And at that time, one of our pastors, they asked me to assist them in finding them a pastor, and I had asked David Rogers if he would assist us at that time, and he eventually accepted. And of course, that church is now one of the largest churches. And what they did ask at that time, someone on the Ontario Executive Committee back then said that, look, the Ontario Conference is short of 15 churches. Would you consider changing your course of study and being a leader of one of those churches? And so I said, no, my wife was still at home. And then when I came back to Bermuda shortly afterwards, I understood that a couple of pastors were trying to start a church. And I said, well, I think, we can do that, because I've certainly had some pre-experience. And we just, along with Elder Doug and some other folk, we started the Rockaway Church. We just did it and made it happen.
Okay. Doug, when he came to you with that idea, did you at first embrace it, or did you say, well, listen, let's be careful here?
Yeah. Actually, what happened was we worked together at the same workplace, Belco, and he came to me and said, look, I've got this idea about starting a new church. And I said, well, I don't know. I was locked in Somerset, but as I thought about it, it seemed to be a move that I could embrace, and I talked to my wife about it, and it seemed more clear that this where God was going to be leading us, me and my family, that is. And so we joined with them in the vision to have another church.
About how many were in that initial group? About how many?
50.
50?
It was 50 of them.
50?
Right.
Most of them came from Southampton, but we had some that came from Somerset, Devonshire, and maybe some others.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of steps did you, since you were at Southampton, am I correct?
Yes, that's
So
correct.
did you approach the Southampton pastor at this time, or
Well, I think he caught the vision also.
the Southampton?
Right, the pastor, and that was Pastor Deneville Walker.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
When he saw that we were organizing and things were happening, he just got on board with it. And I think he shared with us once that it just seemed like something that he couldn't get in the way of. He couldn't stop it. But he did express some concerns initially. He said, he didn't want to split the Southampton church.
Right.
And so, we shared with him, it's not a split, it's an expansion of the Southampton church. It reminded me of Coca-Cola. My wife went to South America with her job, and she said that it seemed like every corner there was an Adventist church, a small Adventist church. And I think the success of Coca-Cola was that they had dispensaries just about in every place, and they just didn't have one big warehouse. And I have to mention also at that time, Southampton was built to, my father was the contractor, was built for 500 members. But on the membership roll, when Doug and I went and formed the Rockaway Church, the membership was already over 900. And of course, they would always put seats down the aisle, and it just seemed like the next thing to do. Because 40 years prior to that, they had planted, I think, the Somerset Church.
That's right.
And so it had come to age.
So
and
Southampton? So Southampton
Southampton
planted the
Somerset Church.
Were you involved with that, Doug?
I came in during the building stage, not in the planting,
Okay.
in the building stage.
And so it was now 40 years, and it was reaching up to almost 40 years, I'm guesstimating. And it was time for the church to do something else. But of course, we were enjoying ourselves and enjoying the good music. But the church has to expand. That's the design of the church, has to grow. And Doug and myself, we're planters.
Yeah.
We plant the seed, and we thank God for Doug, who can hang in there. But I'm a planter, and he can reap, he can hang in there and toil and hang in there. I plant, and then I move to another field to plant.
Yes.
When that's planted, I go somewhere else to plant. That's
So,
my calling.
Doug, David expressed that the Pastor Walker didn't object. He saw it as
Eventually, he had some concerns initially.
Now, what about the conference office? What were their feelings when you gentlemen brought that to them?
Well, the president was then Pastor Bolgen, Dr.
Right.
Bolgen, and he was very much in support of it.
Very good.
Very much in support of it. In fact, in one of our books that we had created during the opening of Rockaway having its new home, it states in there that Dr. Bolgen was indicating to us that don't let nothing stop you in your course. Persevere, move forward, keep moving forward. So he was very supportive.
Now, did you move from church to church in terms of finding a place to worship, or have you guys been fairly stable?
No, it was not church to church. We started at the preschool there in Southampton. I believe it's called Cedar Grove, Southampton Preschool, yeah, which is near the Port Royal Golf Course.
Okay.
Yeah, we started in there with our nucleus of 50, and we were just enjoying worship together in close quarters, and the church started to grow from there.
And from that location you went to, can you recall, what was it?
Yeah, we then moved to Mount Zion. Mount Zion,
Yes.
we grew into Mount Zion. And I think that was the first I remember of the church. They had taken a totally different direction, which has opened many doors. Because since we moved, other churches were able to move into other denominational churches. Because after that was accepted, after we were accepted into the Mount Zion Church, then I immediately got a call from the Devonshire Church to say, how did you do it? What was the contractual arrangement? And so we gave them that information. Then the Midland Heights Church called. How did that happen? How did you guys do that? And we gave them the information. And of course, restoration.
Yeah, well,
Others were able to move now into other churches. It opened up
so you
huge
folks,
opportunities for us.
the
We were the
nucleus-
first.
Okay, that's my question. The
Right,
first to move
right.
into a non-Seventh-day
Right,
Adventist church.
Right.
Yeah.
Prior to that, it was
Now, were there any challenges?
Well, let me say this, Dr. Reverend Larry Lowe.
Larry Lowe.
Yeah, he, when we actually lost the roof of the preschool in a hurricane, and so we had nowhere to go. And so he saw that, and he said to us, look, come by and worship at Mount Zion.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
That's
the
what he said.
invitation actually
It came from him.
Yeah.
He came from him.
Right.
It wasn't at any cost or
Yeah.
anything.
That's right.
We can just come as long as we wanted to.
Yeah.
That's what Dr.
That
Larry
seems
Lowe.
like a blessing.
Oh
It
yeah,
was a
oh
blessing.
yes, wonderful.
And he also mentioned that prior to that, they were having some challenges, and their church split into another congregation, and they had lost a considerable amount of members. And so he said they had been praying that God would give them more members, and he said the board never realized that his new church people would be the Adventists. And so he tells everyone, he told me that he pastors two churches,
Yes.
a Sabbath church and a Sunday church.
Now, getting into the building where you are now, you purchased that building.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we did. We were searching for months. There were things that we had done, like at one point we actually put down money on a piece of property, only to find out that the property had issues with it, and we had to move away from it. There was a lot of disappointment when we thought we had a piece of property. The word came back that we couldn't. There were so many things happening. And so the membership were getting somewhat discouraged. And I got to a point where I didn't want to tell them when things failed. All I kept doing was saying, look, let's just keep praying and let's keep pressing on. And I couldn't tell you the amount of meetings I had with real estate people to look for property. And just when we stopped looking, Sister Sylvia Alice called and wanted to rent her property to the Bermuda Conference. The Bermuda Conference told her, look, you need to go talk to Rockaway. They came, Sister Alice came, talk to Rockaway. We said, we're not interested in buying, we're not interested in renting, we're interested in buying. And she said, oh no, well, that's not what I have in mind. That's what she said, that's not what I got in mind. But as time moved on, she said she believes that God has put it in her heart to sell this property to Rockaway. And the rest is history.
Did you see some challenge? That's a house.
Oh, yes.
But who had the vision in terms of seeing that house as a church? Was it you, Doug, or was it some other?
Well, I think it was myself and others who I believe you can get to a point where you become desperate when you're searching for long lengths of time for something. But I do believe that God was still in it. And we had some contractors like Elder Joe Smith and myself who was able to look at the piece of property and see how we can manage to turn it into a place of worship. And through that vision, we have a building today.
Where are the renovations now?
We are I guess, 75%, 80% finished the renovations. We're still at it. Certainly finances is an issue, and but we're still pressing forward, and the work is being completed.
Yeah. Now, as this nucleus of 50, wow, sounds like a large number, that's great. What spiritually, what was the feeling as things started? Did they feel that they were moving in God's will? Did all of you feel that you were moving in God's will? And what are some indications that you had at that time that you were moving in God's will? Either one.
Yeah, well, certainly one of the indicators to me was, I remember what Elder Joe Smith had mentioned, the reason why he wanted to become a part of this group. We had this Southampton church, and then we had the Somerset church. and these churches serviced their immediate area.
Mhm.
And Elder Joe mentioned to me one of the reasons he had wanted to come on board, because we weren't targeting at that time active members or members that have offices in their church. I remember Doug telling me that you had served for about 12 years and you just were able to step down and they got someone
That's
else.
right. That's
So
right.
he was a prime candidate to ask, because if he was serving, I would not have asked him, because I didn't want to impact the
Disrupt,
churches.
yes.
But Elder Joe was serving as an elder, and so he stated he would like to come on board because he had lived in his area for 19 years, and this group was the first Seventh-day Adventist group that knocked on his door within 19 years. And the reason we chose, in consultation with the previous president to Dr. Baldwin, which was Dr. Carlisle Simmons, who, in planning, he kind of endorsed the area. It was Rockaway was exactly halfway between the Somerset and the Southampton Church.
That's right.
And we had requested from the conference, give us this target area from Somerset Bridge to the South Shore, Southampton Junction, because that area wasn't generally worked, and said, let that be our territory, and we will work that territory. Now, between that area, I think we had estimated that there were 9 other denominations were represented and had, altars in that area, but the Adventist Church wasn't represented. And so we said, let's put a Adventist representation amongst those 9 churches, other denominations, because we did our demographic studies and everything of the area. And when he mentioned that, and we were able to systematically go through each home with our maps and get the responses, then there was an affirmation that we were in God's will, reaching an area that was not normally reached.
Wow.
Yeah.
Exciting, and I can imagine the feeling of those founding fathers and mothers back then was one of excitement, one of willing to work, one of wanting to see God's work progress. Now, any stumbling blocks other than finance that ever came up? Or is finance probably the biggest one?
Sure, I would say that finance was the biggest one. I mean, all of the people who came on board were excited about the idea of purchasing a piece of property and moving the church forward. And so there was a camaraderie that was there that kept us together. And certainly the prayer and the supplication of the members were things that kept the church moving forward. I would say that each of the members were told initially when they came, if you've come to sit down, this is what Elder Dave, if you've come to sit down, this is not the place.
Yes.
That's what he was saying. And so everybody had to be participatory. They had to participate in the movement. I call it a movement, the movement of the Rockaway Church.
Now, Elder Doug, what was it that motivated you and your wife to come on board? I know Dave told us about being in Toronto and Canada and so forth, but what was it in about 20 seconds or so, what was it that motivated you and your wife to get on board?
Well, I think one of the reasons was that I had been the head elder of Somerset Church for about 10 years, and I had been actively involved in the church for a number of years. I saw them through their 25th anniversary, and I believe that at that time God was leading us that way. And so, as Dave said, I had sat back because the head elder then came on board, his Albert Rattery, and then I decided, well, maybe this would be a good time for me to do something different.
We've been talking with some of the founding fathers from the Rockaway Church, Brother Pearman and Brother Trott, and we're going to take a break, and we will be right back with the present pastor, Pastor Milett. Welcome back. We're going to continue talking about the Rockaway Church and church planting. We have with us now the present pastor of Rockaway, Pastor Cyril Milett. Pastor Milett, welcome. Now, you heard the past. Now we're looking at where we are now and the future. So what are some plans that the Rockaway Church has?
Well, Rockaway has been in existence as a congregation for 11 years.
Wow.
They celebrated their 10th anniversary just last year. It was about the same time I arrived to take on responsibility as the pastor there. As we look to the future, I would say that Rockaway's future is bright. God has strategically positioned Rockaway in a community that is very accepting and very open to having people knock on their doors and visit. And one of the strengths of the Rockaway congregation is that the members really enjoy being out in the community, serving God, and making friends for Jesus Christ. So I would say that one of the key ingredients to the future, the direction of the Rockaway congregation, is to continue to reach out to the community on behalf of their Lord and Savior.
Pastor Milett, you talk about reaching out to the community and going in the community. Now, you've pastored in Canada for many, many years. Are you finding that presenting Jesus to the community is easier, about the same, or more difficult here in Bermuda as compared to Canada?
I would say having people open their doors is easier here in Bermuda, definitely. What makes Bermuda such a wonderful place to pastor is that individuals are very open, they're engaging, they are quick to make friends. What is more challenging is actually getting to be able to share the gospel with someone. So Rockaway is looking at different means of making friends because it's so important to make friends. And as we make friends and grow relationships, we earn respect and the right to share the gospel.
I like what you said in terms of relationship, forming that relationship, because if you have a relationship with someone, I believe it becomes easier to introduce Christ to them. Right. Is that the path that or one of the paths anyway that the Rockaway Church is going by? Let's get out in the community, let's be friends to the community, and as we are friends, we'll introduce Christ to them.
I would say that it is. Friendships are key. Also, we recognize that we will have to develop, and I'm hoping that the congregation will move to develop small groups that will be community-based. We have, for example, a group of seniors in the Rockaway complex that meet every Tuesday morning. The members meet and they invite their friends to one of the members' homes. And in their home, they talk about everyday things, everyday struggles, repairs that need to be made at the complex, concerns that they have about grandchildren. And interspersed with that, we are able to share Bible readings and texts to encourage them, but also systematically look at Bible doctrine and belief. And some of the folk there are very open to hearing what we have to share.
So this group of seniors, it's more than just Seventh-day Adventists that participate in this. Now,
that's right.
How would the other groups work? Here you have seniors that come to the church, but you mentioned small groups. Mm-hmm. How does that work?
Well, as long as a member is willing to open their home and invite neighbors and friends in, there are discussions that can be had around topics and themes of interest to those groups. One of the things that I've noticed in coming back to Bermuda is that many of our families are struggling. And Rockaway, I think we would like to be able to minister to families more effectively and help parents with their young people. We need to look at how we can challenge folk to have stronger relationships within their homes. As they have stronger relationships within their homes that are Christ-centered, they will come to appreciate that coming to Rockaway, just a larger Christ-centered family is the place to be.
Okay. We've been talking with Pastor Cyril Milett, the pastor of the Rockaway Church, and we've gotten kind of a bird's eye view of the development of Rockaway to where it is presently. So again, we invite you at some point to go and visit the Rockaway Church. I've been there, my wife and I, a few months ago, and really enjoyed it. So we invite you to the Rockaway Church, and we will be right back with members from the Restoration Church. Welcome back. We've been talking about church planting. With us now we have members of the Restoration Seventh-day Adventist Church. And I guess in the spirit of openness, I'm also a member of the Restoration Church. With us we have LaVohn Ferguson and we have Owen Simons with us, some of the founders of Restoration. Now, Owen, it's my understanding that the vision or the dream of a church started with you. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you are correct.
Okay.
In 1986, I actually had a vision of a church, and I guess I just suppressed it for a long time, and then I shared it with a couple friends, Terrence Dean and Tracy Spencer, now Richardson, and we laughed about it. We talked about what it looked like, and I shared the dream of how we were going and getting people that used to come to church and bring them back into this building. And the room started filling up and filling up. And that was the model that we adapted in 2004 when we actually began. And we shared the vision with others that were friends of ours that sang in the inspirational choir. And they joined us, shared the vision, and then we began a ministry in 2004.
Now, I understand, too, that that dream began before 1986.
Well, yeah, fragments of that dream did begin. I was actually in my house, and I kept...
About how old were you then?
Probably about 10.
Okay.
And I kept building a church in my room. I actually built it. I saw it. I kept seeing it, so I built it. But the actual dream didn't come to 1986. But I kept seeing this church, so I built it in my bedroom, actually a model. Okay. I don't have the exact picture. I have it at my home, a picture of the church that I actually built.
Wow. Okay, now here we are back in 1986. You were sharing this dream of this vision of starting a church. Now, what need did you see that needed to be fulfilled?
Well, at that time, I didn't see it. I knew God was telling me to do it, but I didn't understand what it meant, because everybody was at church. But years later, the people that were at church were not. So the drive to actually see these people come back to church was felt more as we got older.
Now, LaVohn, at what point did you hear about this church?
I am a member of the inspirational choir, and Owen shared his vision with me. And me being the type of person I am, thought of people immediately that I could invite to the church of this caliber without walls.
Yeah. And again, the main purpose of the church was what? Was it to get back those who were once
walked with us?
Once
Yes.
walked with us as
Yes.
Seventh-day Adventist Christians,
Yeah.
people.
You know, Rockaway, they told us some of them came out of Southampton, and I know many people believe that Restoration came out of Southampton. But were you a member?
No, I was a member of Pembroke,
A member of
Seventh-day
Pembroke.
Adventist Church.
And so what you heard in terms of bringing back young Seventh-day
Yes.
Adventists,
Yes.
that excited you?
It did. It really did.
Was it young Seventh-day Adventists, the age of folks were 10 years or so ago, or was it just bringing
It was
back
people, period.
people?
I had family members who I wanted to see come in, and I knew that what we were offering in this vision, that it would captivate and bring them in.
Now you say what was being offered that would bring them back?
We were meeting the needs of the people. We were not judging you. We were accepting you as God would. Just the fact that you were a soul, we were accepting you in that way. No judgment, Come as you are, God will do the rest.
LaVohn says, no judgment, come as you are. But has that come as you are, has that been maybe a knock against the church at times, Restoration Church at times?
Perhaps because people feel that that means come as you are, as you dress.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that narrows it down too much. I think you may be broken.
Okay.
You may you come as you are. You may be a member of another church, maybe a non-Seventh-day Adventist church. Come as you are. So I think we need to broaden it beyond dress.
I remember Sherry and I had not moved back to Bermuda as yet, and we were over at Dr. Sheila and Leslie Holder, and Leslie Jr. and his wife were there, and they were telling us they were going to Restoration. We didn't know what Restoration was. And Leslie and Maria spent the entire 2-3 hours afternoon telling us about Restoration. We could see the excitement in their voices, and we were members of Southampton. And we visited Restoration once, and we have been going to Restoration since then. Now, what were some challenges that one faced? Who was the pastor, first of all, of Restoration, not Restoration, of Southampton at that time?
The pastor of Southampton at that time was Pastor Donaville Walker at that time, and I wouldn't say that there were challenges for him. We came from different churches, so I guess each church might have had some type of challenge with us leaving at the time, and we did. But when God tells you to go, you have to go. It's that's what we decide to follow, the leading of the Spirit.
LaVohn, how did you know that God was leading you to join this new group?
The excitement that filled my soul when I got involved was enough. I knew God was leading me.
Okay. Now, Owen, in terms of, you said Pastor Walker, he was encouraging. Now, what about when you went to, you took this vision or this idea to the conference office? What was the reaction there?
The reaction from the conference officials at that time was very encouraging, very positive. The challenge was, how do we do it?
Yes.
Because churches that are planted in Bermuda come from another church. Because we all weren't coming from the same church, it presented a challenge with how we were going to make this work, how we were going to transfer everybody into a non-existent ministry that doesn't have necessarily official ties with the Adventist church. So we transferred all into what is called a conference church, and we were under the Bermuda Conference as opposed to being under any one Adventist church.
Now, initially, Restoration did not have a pastor. What was it like functioning without a pastor?
I would say that the people involved were so determined that we were overly aggressive in making sure that everything that we did had a high level of excellence and quality, and we would often meet to make sure that whatever we did was going to be, the best for God. So without a pastor, we just outsourced those responsibilities amongst the membership, and they would do their due diligence to make sure.
Yeah. Now, in the early days, what time did church begin? Back in
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
Yes.
Why was 2 o'clock chosen? What happened to 9:30 and 10?
Well, the model we chose to accommodate us not having a pastor was we had the study at 10, we had lunch at 12, and then 2 o'clock we would utilize the already hired Adventist ministers at 2 o'clock. After they had finished their services, they would come up and preach for us at about 2:30.
Now, LaVohn, not having a pastor per se to lead out and have church board meetings and so forth, did you find that the church functioned well without a pastor?
We did what we had to do. We all got together. We were a family. We delegated, and we did what we had to do.
And that went well?
That went very well, yes, indeed.
Now, LaVohn is my partner. LaVohn, we're probably one of the older members.
Yes, yes. May not look like it, but yes.
Now, how did you, as an older member, with all these other young people, how did you fit in? How did you see the growth of the church at that time?
I was considered, as young as I am, the mother of the church.
The mother of the church, okay.
And consequently, that was my responsibility. I mothered everyone. I took care of visitors and members. At that time, we just bonded together.
Yeah.
That was my responsibility.
Now, Restoration we've moved from place to place to place. Owen, why?
Sometimes it was in our benefit to have programs in a larger facility because it lended itself to what we wanted to do. For instance, now we're at Bermuda Institute, and we would often have our large Christmas cantatas there and plays there. We've been at St. Anne's Church Hall, and we've also been to T and Tatum. Those areas and halls provided a more intimate setting for us to do ministry, and I think that that was what we were trying to accomplish, an intimate setting. So some of the smaller facilities were actually preferred.
Now, do you find that the uniqueness of, by the way, first of all, let's back up. Restoration, how was that name selected?
I think after talking and discussing and praying about it for many weeks, we decided that we wanted to see people restored back to God's image. We wanted to see relationships restored, families restored. So that the word restore became I guess the root of what we were doing, and hence the name Restoration came about. It just was like a natural fit to everything that we were trying to do.
Very good.
And we also thought that the restoration would not only be to Adventists, but if there were other people in the community that were hurting and needed to be restored, they could come under that umbrella as well.
Now, one of the things that I've recognized about Restoration, individuals may come to Restoration, they may be looking for a church, they may have been out there wanting to come back, but after a while they move on. Do you find that healthy, that they move on, or is that part of being restored?
That was the purpose.
That's the purpose.
Yes, that was the purpose, yes.
Okay. So once you're restored, you don't have to stay with
No,
Restoration.
no.
The key point is being restored. Being restored.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, what are some of the key factors in terms of what makes Restoration unique? First for you, LaVohn, what makes Restoration unique for you?
This is a church where you can come and you can have your worship style if you wish to sit still, if you wish to raise your hands, if you wish to sing out loud. Here's a place where you can do just that.
Yeah.
You are welcome.
Owen, what for you makes Restoration unique?
For me, surprisingly, it would be that it's not the music. That's a given. It's gonna have. We have a lot of musicians. We're gonna have good music. It's not the prayer meetings, which are very they're power packed. But for me, it's the unique ability to change.
Expand on that.
If something's not right, we don't have to keep doing it over and over. We can fix it and then do it right immediately. I think that's what I like the most. We can say that program's not working, scrap it, let's do something else. Or this is not working for us, this is how we can improve this program. And I'll just leave it at that because I don't want to compare, but that's what I think for me, that makes us unique in that we can adapt very quickly.
You mentioned music. Let's look at the music. One of the Restoration is known for its music. But at Restoration, I can't recall us singing too many traditional hymns out of the hymn book.
Right.
Elaborate on that. Is that good? Is that bad? Or does it make a difference? Because some people might say, well, listen, you guys don't sing from the hymn book.
I think you have to define what a hymn is.
From the traditional hymn book?
From the traditional hymn book. There's no rule that says you have to sing from the traditional hymn book. I'm not against hymn, and in fact, every once in a while, at the end of our praise and worship segment, our praise and worship leader will go into hymns. He'll sing hymns, but because we're not singing each verse and each stanza, maybe that's not considered singing of a hymn. I think that hymns have stanzas and they have the chorus. And some of the more modern songs are now being dubbed as hymns because they're just being written. But if you look in a modern hymnal, the songs that we're singing are now in those hymnals.
Yeah.
So, and in fact, there's our hymns.
LaVohn, you were at Pembroke.
Yes.
When you left Pembroke and others with you that may have left Pembroke and come to Restoration, was there any particular fear in your part of disrupting Pembroke?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. I would still go and visit. Restoration being what it is, it had my total commitment, but I would still visit Pembroke.
Okay. Oh, and did you and the few members that were at Restoration, were at Southampton, when you left Southampton for Restoration, was there any of that fear? You know, oh man, I'm leaving Southampton. I don't want to disrupt the services here.
I think at that point, you reach a point in your life where you have to make a decision about what you're going to do and what God has called you to do. And I think that at the time that I made the decision, my work was complete at Southampton. I was very involved. And I think that if I decided to go somewhere else, I would be as equally or if not more involved. And so I didn't have a fear.
Yeah.
I believe that God has a plan, and for us to prosper. I didn't wish any harm on them. And as I left, you're going to miss me or anything. I just said, you know, I wish you well, you know, and I take it that, you know, when we moved somewhere else, that we would just be active, and we were so ministry driven that fear was never there for me.
Now, are there any plans for a church building?
We've discussed what we'd like to do in general discussions, but there are no concrete plans that we can say at this point that we will that we have, but we would like to.
Okay, but so it's somewhere down the line, somewhere in the future, that there are plans for the future.
I would say yes.
Okay, let me ask you now, and along with LaVohn and Owen's parents, Sherry and I are some of the older members, more senior, more mature members at Restoration. Now, Owen, some of the group, when they founded Restoration, were young, maybe in their 30s.
Yes.
Now some of you guys are in your 40s. As your age changed, have you seen the church change?
Well, I would say yes. One of the things that we were laughing about when we started, we didn't have children. So even as we planned this ministry, we didn't plan it for children because we didn't have any children. It was a few. So our children's ministry was very small. 10 years later, there are a lot of children. And our children's ministry program is one of the best on the island. And it has really caused us to shift our focus in ministry. So I would say I've seen a shift in our focus in ministry since we began.
Also, Restoration is one of the churches that supports Bermuda Institute with their children.
Yes.
Many of the children of our church attends Bermuda Institute. We have been talking with some of the founders of Restoration, LaVohn and Owen. We've heard where the dream started with Owen. We've heard how individuals from other churches came out and formed Restoration. We will be right back, and we will talk with the pastor, Pastor Ulric Hetsberger, right after this. Welcome back. We were talking with Restoration, and we heard how that church was planted. We took a look at the history. Now we're going to look at the future. We have with us Pastor Ulric Hetsberger, the pastor of Restoration Seventh-day Adventist Church. Welcome, Pastor.
Thank you so much. It's definitely good to be here on the program.
Okay. Where is Restoration headed?
That's an excellent question, and I believe it begins with what restoration is. Restoration is not just a group of people that meet once a week or do outreach in the community. No, restoration is an ideal. Restoration exists to lovingly restore God's image in mankind. That's our mission statement. We try to say it every single week. And what does that mean? It means that we're a place that accepts people, loves people, and we want people to grow with us. I was recently on vacation in the United States, and I was talking to other ministers who watched some of our clips on Facebook, and they were just talking to me about my church. And I was just absolutely excited because of just how we are able to bless people. And they're just like, wow, we love what you're doing. We love how great your ministry is. And so Restoration is a place where we want to reach not those who have left church, but we want to reach hurting people. And so that when you walk into our doors or when you meet one of our people, your marriage is being restored. If you make a mistake, we will love you. We will grow with you. And so on facets of our ministry, we have children's ministry, which was mentioned before is one of the best on the islands, because we want, if you bring your child at our church, or if a child comes to our church, that by the time they're in adulthood, there are a Seventh-day Adventist Christian that is happy about God, that loves God, our youth, all the way to our adults. So this aspect of the name of Restoration, it embodies what we are and what we're striving to be. Now, we are in conversations about having a building. We want to have a place of worship, yes. We want to win souls for God, yes. In fact, we have a wonderful campaign in a few months with Dr. Bird and Breath of Life, which is great. But where Restoration is going is that we are after the island of Bermuda. And we're not going to stop until every person that we can come in contact with is restored. We want healthy marriages, healthy families, healthy singles who know God and who are ready for his appearing, ready for his coming.
Pastor, could you share with us some of the answered prayers that Restoration has actually prayed for?
Wow.
And then shortly after that, we see the answer.
Oh, wow. We have so many. We have so many answered prayers. I think of a young lady who had many miscarriages, and she really desperately wanted to have a child. And she came forward for our prayer meeting, and we laid hands on her. And now she now has 2 sons, you know, and we praise God for that. We have answered prayers of those who needed employment. And we really are big on prayer, and God has opened doors so people can be employed. We have parents who want their children to go to Bermuda Institute, and they'd have no way of paying for that, and God has just opened miraculous doors from that. And so on our weekly prayer meeting Tuesday night at 6:30 p.m. at Bermuda Institute, we're open with God. And on a weekly basis, we see God move and open a part of the restoration vision that we have.
Yeah. We can see the excitement in Pastor Hetsberger as he talks about restoration.
Yeah, let me plug in something. Let me just plug in some things. One of the things when I was asked to come to Restoration and give pastoral leadership to this congregation, what I was mostly excited about was the potential and what was already there. In my mind, I'd visited Restoration for 2 or 3 times. And when I walked in, I saw a community of believers who are very loving. Believe it or not, people really don't much care about doctrine as they do care about, are you living the life? Can you love me? Can you accept me? And I saw a group of people which I thought they got it. They understood not just Romans 1-8, but the other half of Romans, living the Christian life, and understand that we're all sinners. We just want people who are in the boat can go and we can grow together unto the kingdom of heaven. So I was absolutely excited. So when I talk about restoration, I'm excited because I think we're doing something that is unique. And I think if we can get the word, come come. We will love you. We will love you. We will restore you. I think it will be an explosive experience for anyone who comes.
Talk to us a little bit about what's going to be happening in November, and you did mention it, but expand on that a little bit more.
Okay, from November 23rd, we have Dr. Carlton Bird. He was here last year for an evangelistic campaign for our entire island in July. And we are bringing him back. We have a number of people within our communities who are exposed to his ministry who were really blessed, but never really made the decision to go all the way. And we don't believe in leaving anyone behind, you know. And so we believe that there's sheep out there, there are fish out there who are yet to be caught. But additionally, we want to reach out to those also who have left the church, and we want to bring them back. And so he is a captivating speaker. He has a passion for souls, and is really akin to what we're trying to do at our church. And so that's why we're bringing him back. It's going to be something that has hardly been seen before. And so we're just very excited about November 23rd. Come Bermuda Institute Auditorium. We are seeking the lost and pointing them to Jesus.
Yeah. We've been talking with Pastor Ulric Hetsberger, the pastor of the Restoration Seventh-day Adventist Church. And this week, we were looking at church planting, how different churches have been planted, Restoration and Rockaway. And we spoke to some of the founders, and we saw how God gave them a vision, and then how that church has grown, and where their present pastor is now will take them from where they are and spread the word. And hopefully, very soon, Jesus will come.
Hallelujah.
Thank you so much for joining us on Heaven's Glow. We will see you next time.